Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open a sealed archive of esoteric knowledge and flipping through the illuminated pages of some incredibly ancient Vedic texts. We're going to reveal the hidden side of Lord Shiva. So, if you think you already know everything there is to know about the supreme god of destruction, we'll get ready to look a whole lot deeper.
Right off the bat, let's dive into this idea. As this quote brilliantly illustrates, Shiva totally defies standard storytelling. He doesn't have a simple beginning, middle, and end like other figures you'd find in the epics. Instead, he kind of exists beyond normal boundaries. He steps in and out of ancient myths to disrupt the status quo, deliver some really harsh cosmic lessons, and ultimately restore balance. Here is our roadmap for today's journey. We'll be hitting beyond the popular myths, severing Brahma's pride, the supreme mendicant, the demon's son Jalandhara, avatars of fierce balance, and finally, the dance with ignorance. Let's just get right into it. Chapter 1. Beyond the popular myths, looking specifically at the swan on Manasarovar. We're starting with a story that plays with the very idea of creation myths, right at the literal dawn of time. Now, what's really wild about this is how Shiva acts as this ultimate free soul right out of the gate. Picture this. Lord Brahma had just created 4 handsome young men to be the ancestors of all mankind. They're sitting by the shores of Manasarovar, praying for guidance. And suddenly, this magnificent white swan swims up to them. This was Shiva, taking the form of the Paramahamsa, the supreme swan. But he didn't come to bless their worldly journey or anything like that. He actually came to warn them that the physical world is merely Maya, or illusion. He told these first humans that creation is just a game for the gods, basically trying to save them from the endless cycle of worldly attachments before the whole thing even began. Moving right along to Chapter 2, Severing Brahma's Pride and the Birth of Kala Bhairava. Let's see how this tension builds into one of the most shocking tales of cosmic rage out there. Okay, let's trace how this escalated. It starts with this massive argument between Brahma and Vishnu over who is actually the supreme creator. To settle it, Shiva appears as an infinite blazing pillar of fire, and the challenge is just to find its end. Brahma lies. He claims he found the top, and using his 5th head, he arrogantly mocks Shiva. Well, to instantly decapitate Brahma's ego, Shiva generates a fierce, terrifying warrior straight from his own being, Kala Bhairava. With a mere flick of his thumbnail, Kala Bhairava severs Brahma's lying 5th head, permanently establishing that divine arrogance is absolutely not going to be tolerated. But here's the catch. Even divine actions have massive consequences. By severing the head of Brahma, who was the most learned being in existence, Kala Bhairava committed Brahmahatya. That's the ultimate cosmic sin. And the universe's law of karma? It spares no one. The severed head physically fused directly to Kala Bhairava's left hand, and a horrifying demoness personifying that sin began to hunt him relentlessly across the realms. So, to atone for this incredible sin, Shiva was forced into a deeply humbling paradox. Chapter 3. The Supreme Mendicant and Bhikshatana's Expiation. He basically became Bhikshatana, the supreme beggar. To expiate his sin, he had to undertake this grueling 12-year wandering vow. Completely stripped of his glory, he roamed the universe entirely naked, using Brahma's severed skull as his actual alms bowl. This journey took him through the heavens, the earth, and the netherworlds, constantly pursued by the manifestation of his sin, until he finally reached the sacred city of Kashi, Varanasi, where the skull fell from his hand and he was liberated. But on his way to Kashi, there's this incredible detour. He wanders into the Deodar forest. Now, this place is packed with these super arrogant sages who were obsessed with strict rituals but completely lacked any true spiritual knowledge. By showing up as a mesmerizing, naked beggar, Bhikshatana casually shatters their rigid social order. The sages' wives are instantly enamored. They start following him wildly. And when the sages understandably grow furious and attack him, Shiva just effortlessly neutralizes their curses. He stripped away their superficial righteousness to teach them a hard lesson. True salvation comes from supreme knowledge, not just going through the motions of empty rituals. Which flips us over to Chapter 4, the demon's son Jalandhara, born of divine wrath, because Shiva's untamed energy also resulted in some deeply unexpected and highly dangerous offspring. You see, the texts tell us of beings born from Shiva's discarded, highly volatile substances. First, there's Ashwatthama,
born from the deadly Kalakuta poison that burned Shiva's throat. Then there's Jalandhara. When Shiva flashed his third eye in anger at Lord Indra, he actually redirected the devastating fire into the ocean just to spare Indra's life. But upon hitting the water, that raw divine wrath transformed into a wailing infant, Jalandhara. Both of these beings grew into massive volatile forces that the gods themselves had to desperately reckon with.
So why was Jalandhara so utterly terrifying to the gods? Well, looking at his background, he was no ordinary demon. He was a highly disciplined ruler, actually crowned by Guru Shukracharya. He was so powerful he conquered heaven itself. But his true invincibility? That came from his wife, Vrinda. Her absolute devotion and spiritual purity created this impenetrable shield around him. Ultimately, his downfall only came when his own arrogance led him to challenge Shiva directly and Lord Vishnu deceitfully broke Vrinda's protective trance. It's a pretty stark reminder that immense power, when it's fueled by ego, eventually destroys itself. This concept of balancing extremes leads us perfectly into Chapter 5, Avatars of Fierce Balance, featuring Veerbhadra and Sharabha.
Let's dive right into this. When Shiva's first wife, Sati, lost her life due to the insults of her father, Daksha, Shiva didn't just sit around and mourn. His grief erupted into pure, destructive rage. From a single lock of his hair, he created Veerbhadra, a terrifying, giant warrior. Veerbhadra completely represents Shiva's fiercely protective nature and his readiness to brutally avenge injustices against divine principles. He charged straight into Daksha's sacrificial ceremony and dismantled the whole shebang, proving that cosmic honor must be upheld. Now, as we look impartially across these esoteric texts and different traditions, we hit the Sharabha avatar, a terrifying winged lion bird form of Shiva meant to subdue Lord Vishnu's fierce Narasimha form after it grew uncontrollable. But here is the really crucial takeaway for us as an explainer. Different traditions view these overlapping forms differently. Vaishnava speak of Gandhabharunda countering Sharabha, while Shaktis invoke goddess Pratyanjira to calm them all down. We're not looking at petty sectarian victories here. These are profound symbolic representations of how extreme, volatile energies in the universe constantly require new mechanisms to balance them out.
And that brings us to this really fascinating quote. Sharabha represents a raw, fierce energy meant to neutralize specific situations. Think of these hidden, fierce avatars as operational manifestations. They are invoked only like spiritual nuclear weapons to restore order. Once the cosmic balance is achieved, these terrifying forms retreat. They aren't meant for casual, everyday worship, which is exactly why they remain hidden deep in the more complex layers of the texts. Which brings us to our final chapter. Chapter 6, The Cosmic Dance of Ignorance, focusing on Nataraja and Apasmara. Here we find Shiva performing the Tandava, the cosmic dance of creation and destruction.
To really grasp the depth of this dance, we have to talk about Ahamkara, the ego, the I-maker. This concept is physically personified in Hindu mythology as the diminutive, subhuman demon, Apasmara. He represents the spiritual ignorance and memory loss that binds us to our earthly bodies, causing us to forget our true divine nature, life after life, in the endless cycle of rebirth.
And honestly, this is one of the most profound visual metaphors in history. The writer Aldous Huxley hit the nail on the head when he observed that when Shiva dances, his right foot is planted firmly on the back of Apasmara. He subdues the demon of ego and ignorance. But, and this is absolutely crucial, he deliberately does not kill him. Why? Because a baseline of ignorance is actually required to keep the cycle of the universe functioning. If Apasmara died, we would instantly transcend the physical world and the game of creation would end. So Shiva points to his lifted left foot, symbolizing that liberation or moksha is available to those who actively seek it, even while the ego remains subdued right beneath us.
These hidden stories of Shiva, they aren't just ancient myths, they're literal psychological blueprints. So, if Shiva killing the demon of ignorance would end the whole cosmic game, it leaves us with a massive question. What parts of your own ego are a necessary evil in your life's cosmic dance? How do you balance the blazing fire of your ambition with the deep knowledge of your true self? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the esoteric archives. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.